All right, so we're still having some people having trouble with metric conversion, so hopefully this will be a little tutorial to help you down the line because it's something that we're going to have to do. We're going to start with our King Henry chart, and the King Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk is a way for us to remember the order of the most common metric prefixes. Now, all the metric prefixes stem from the base units of measurement: grams for mass, liters for capacity volume, meters for length. And how I convert from one unit to another is from these base units. So let's take a look at some examples here. So the first example I'm going to give you folks is one-dimensional measurement. And this applies to grams, this applies to liters, this applies to meters. And we'll stick here with meters. So we're going to go with 250 centimeters. And I want to figure out how many meters is that. I need to convert my measurements to meters. Well, what I need to do is look at two things. What unit am I currently in, which is centimeter, and what unit do I want to convert to, which in this case is the meter. Now I go up to my chart, I find centi, which is right here. I find meter, which is my base unit right there. Now basically all I have to do is look to see how many steps or how many times I have to move my decimal on my chart here to go from centimeters to meters, and what direction do I need to do it in. So if I go from a centimeter to a decimeter and decimeter to a meter, I have to move 2 spaces to the left. So what I'm going to do is the exact same thing down here in my number. So my number is 250. I need to move my decimal 2 spots to the left. So I'm going to do that here, 1, 2, and now that becomes my new number in meters. Remember that we want to preserve the amount of significant figures. So in 250 centimeters, we have 2 sig figs, the 2 and the 5. So my answer then would become 2.5 meters. We don't want to add a 0 because that 0 is not going to be considered significant. All right, then 250. So we need to make sure that we have 2 significant figures. And that works in any direction. However many steps, whatever direction I need to move it in, that works for one-dimensional measurements. Now, what happens if we have to do it in 2 or 3 dimensions? Well, we have to change things a little bit, but it's not much different than what we just did right here. So let's clear this out. And we're going to start with, instead of 250 centimeters, I'm going to go 250 centimeters squared, and I want to know how many meters squared that is. Okay, same thing that we did before. Let's identify our units. We got the centimeter here. We got the meter, which is the base unit here. Now, I want to look at this as if I'm just going from centimeters to meters first. So like we did before, 1, 2 spots to the left. Now, if this was just centimeters and meters like the last example, I would just move my decimal 2 spots to the left. But this is area units. Area units are 2-dimensional. So what that means is, if I move my decimal 2 spots to the left for 1 dimension, I need to double that amount because we're talking about area units or squared units. So in any area conversion, when we're dealing with squared units, we are going to double the amount of spaces that I would move in 1 dimension. So let's take our number here, 250, and we're going to move it now. Instead of just 2 spaces, we're going to double that, and now we're going to move it 4 spaces. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And we add a 0 where there's a blank. Now, as far as my answer goes, we need to make sure we preserve the number of significant figures. We have 2 significant figures in 250, so my answer then would become 0.025 meters squared. So now I've done my conversion in squared units, and I've still preserved the amount of significant figures. How about cubic units? Not much different than that. Do this in another color. Let's say I wanted 250 centimeters cubed to meters cubed. Still treat it as 1 dimension. Base unit of meter, centimeter here. we would have to move it 2 spots to the left. But now, instead of moving it 2 spots, we need to take in square cubic units, and we need to do that 3 times the amount because we're talking about 3 dimensions. So now instead of moving it 2 spots to the left, I move it 6 spots to the left. So now my number becomes 250. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now I fill it in with zeros. I want to keep my significant figures, which is 2. And now my answer would be 0.00025 meters cubed. And there's my conversion in 3 dimensions. So, how can we summarize our conversions here? If we're in 1 dimension, move it however many spots you need to move and what direction you need to move. But if I'm doing squared units, you need to double that amount. If we're doing cubic units, we need to triple that amount. And that works in any direction that you need it to go. And hopefully this will help you a lot.